In 2015, as a young entrepreneur, I thought I had team building figured out. I grew up playing sports, I served on great teams in the Air Force, and I had a great family. And in these environments, teamwork wasn't an option. It was everything. So when I started my first business at 24, I was very confident in my ability to build great teams and then lead those teams to do great things. And it was an illusion that I shattered pretty quickly. And one of my first hires did that. He was a guy named Tom. He was a great dude, reliable, kind, no drama, showed up on time, which in the restaurant business is a huge deal. But Tom had one major problem. He was slow. No matter how much I coached, nudged, begged him to move faster, it just wasn't happening. And at first I thought I just needed to train him better. I looked inward. What am I doing wrong? So I spent hours working with him, demonstrating techniques, timing tasks, pushing improvement. Tom never changed. So I did. I became this micromanager. I hovered over him. I nitpicked. I started to resent this guy. And the consequences were pretty immediate. We had late tickets, upset customers, bad reviews. I remember this one review where the customer was like, food was great, but it took too long. They weren't even busy, and I won't be back. And that hurt. That stung a little bit. And so it finally hit me after all of this pain that I wasn't actually leading this team. I was dragging it, and I was just freaking exhausted. So, and I got lucky, around that same time. I met another barbecue restaurant owner in town, and he had a successful team and a great reputation. And so I swallowed my pride, and I asked him straight up, how do you find the right people? And he laughed at me and said, you're asking the wrong question. He went on to explain that when he was early in his career, he made the same mistake. He was hiring based on availability and a lot of gut instinct. And then he realized something critical. You don't hire people to train them into what you need. You hire the traits that actually matter, in our case, speed, service-first mentality, and coachability. And then those people build the business. This conversation blew me away. I was definitely not the smartest person in the room at that moment, and it humbled me. So I went back to my restaurant, and I made a change. I rewrote my whole interview process. I focused on behavioral questions, not past experience. I implemented a 30-day trial period to see if they'd work out and demonstrate our core values. And if not, they didn't stay. The results: our turnover dropped from 100% every 90 days to 50%, which in the restaurant business is crazy good. Our customers were happier. We finally started making money. We finally started having people come back again and again and again because they liked the experience and dealing with people that weren't just me or my family. And it made me realize something, that if you're always the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And it's hard to not be the smartest person in the room. It's an ego trap. You want to be the smartest person in the room. You see, entrepreneurs, they want to be the visionaries. They want to be the best managers, and they want to be the best at doing the thing too. But it's an ego trap, because if you're the smartest person in the room, you're also the only one making decisions. And that's how businesses fail. If you're the ceiling of intelligence in your company, then you're also going to be the bottleneck. And there's a scientific reason why new entrepreneurs tend to fall into this trap. It's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect, and it's a cognitive bias that makes beginners overestimate their abilities. Meanwhile, experts who know more tend to underestimate themselves. The crazy thing is once you see this, you'll see it in every single area of your life. Are you aware of your own limitations, or are you not? This reminds me of, I can't tell you how many times I've had client meetings where we're talking to somebody across the table and they know everything there is to know about marketing, and they don't want to hear any of the suggestions that we make at High Beam Marketing. And on one hand, it's their business. They're in charge. They're the client. I'm going to do what they want at the end of the day. But we have a core value at High Beam called call a spade, and we will tell them the truth on the front end, and we will own if we're wrong or right. The majority of the time, we tend to be right just because we're working across hundreds of millions of dollars and dozens of brands, while that person on the other side of the table who thinks they know everything and wants to be the smartest person in the room is only focused on their one brand with their one unique set of experiences. They are the highest level of intelligence in the room, thus they are the cap. Steve Jobs is one of my heroes in entrepreneurship. And in his first run at Apple, he made this mistake. He was a genius with 1,000 helpers. And then they fired him because he was a maniacal, crazy person who thought he was the smartest person in the room. But when he returned through his whole trials and tribulations with Pixar and Next and the other things, he figured out a different model where he could be the conductor of 1,000 geniuses. But when you're not the smartest person in the room, how do you actually manage that team without losing their respect? It's a good question, and I like to lean on another one of my heroes, Benjamin Franklin. Ben Franklin was a very humble inventor, scientist, and at the end of the day, really just a merchant from Philadelphia. But he somehow went to the French court, the English court, and ultimately the American court to influence people with way more intelligence and way more authority than he had to do the things that he saw best for his companies, and ultimately his country. And his secret comes from this ancient Greek debate tactic called the Socratic Method. And so instead of telling people what to do, Franklin asked strategic questions that made people rethink their own beliefs. You see, people hate being told that they're wrong, but they don't mind discovering it on their own. Socrates, the Greek philosopher, believed that wisdom came from questioning, and so his method was to ask an open-ended question, get a response, and listen to the response, probe deeper with more questions to reveal truth or contradictions, and ultimately make the person rethink their stance if they were wrong. Franklin used this method to build influence, not enemies, and you, if you want to lead a team of geniuses, should too. So what does that look like for you in a modern-day boardroom? Well, let's go back to the marketing example that we just shared a second ago. That guy can be sitting across from me with all of his unique experience, and he can disagree with what I'm presenting as a plan. That's fine. We should have healthy disagreement. That's how we come to the best options. But instead of just coming back to me and saying, we're going to do it this way because of blah, 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 he comes back with, well, what made you think that this is the best strategy? Like, what are you seeing in the market that makes me want to do this? Like, how, what questions will take you so far in life you have no idea? Because if he had asked me all those things, I'd have had a whole line of reasoning that's backed up by experience, it's backed up by data, and it's ultimately backed up by proof, because we've done it so many different times. That character didn't change his experience in that environment, but the outcome he's going to get from that team, trusting the experts around him, being humble enough to say, I'm okay not being the smartest person in the room, is an entrepreneurial superpower. And if you want to separate yourself between the people that are going to close their businesses next year and the ones that are going to thrive, this is one of the keys to doing that. And if you're like any of my other clients in high-value marketing, like this guy, then you probably either think you don't need a marketing agency because you know everything, or you hate agencies because you've used them before and they suck, which, fair enough, our industry is full of charlatans, and I don't blame you. But I'm willing to put it to the test here. So if you'll watch this video right here, you'll see everything I know about marketing. This is a marketing plan cradle to grave, and I usually charge people $5,000 to build this plan out for them. So you're going to get all the information for free in less than an hour. Check that out. Let me know what you think.